This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. While MeUndies can't totally help your love life this Valentine's Day, they can offer you insanely comfy undies and loungewear to buy or gift. MeUndies has so many awesome Valentine's Day prints and styles. Plus, you can match with your partner, friends, or even your pets. This Valentine's Day, give the gift that'll keep them thinking of you and score huge site-wide savings at MeUndies.com/Spotify. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify. MeUndies. Comfort from the outside in.
Join us on this week's Wrap podcast, where we'll talk through all of the latest URC action for the Welsh side and take a look ahead to Wales' first game against France this Friday. Let's get going. You're listening to Wrap, the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Wrap Podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me, as always, Jamie, Harley and Nick. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
So we're at the weird end of the season where international stuff kind of takes over and the URC is on a bit of a back one. So we've got a bit of a mixture of a show this evening, which is a bit weird because it's either one or the other usually. So this is the flip over. So let's start with a bit of news desk then, James. Let's get going with some news desk, and I'm going to try and be fancy while you're doing this, just for everyone watching on the YouTube. But I'm going to, for everyone listening, not going to give a monkeys about it. But you crack on, and I'm going to try and share the stories as you're doing them. Go.
Right. Let's start with some Wales news then. So today, Ospreys tight head Ben Warren, he's been called up to the Wales squad. So this was because Will Griff-John played for Sale against Bath on the weekend, and he failed a HIA after coming off during the first half. And he's likely to miss Wales' first two Six Nations fixtures. He's not leaving the squad. He's still very much part of the squad. But they've called up Ospreys tight head Ben Warren. And then in news that we didn't see coming, purely because of the timing of it, Alex King has been given the chop, and he's been replaced by Rob Howley as the Wales attack coach for the Six Nations. I think it's fair to say we've had criticisms about Wales's attack, and Alex King's position has come into question. But to do it like a week or so before the Six Nations, did not see that coming. But I don't know if you want to make a comment on that.
It seems weird the amount of changes we've made to the coaching team really late on. Do you know what I mean?
The only thing I'd add is that when he was appointed, Gatlin wasn't exactly very enthusiastic. He made it quite clear he wanted Rob Howley, but at the time, post-betting scandal, the WRU and the Wisdom didn't feel it was appropriate to appoint him. So for me, it was always, once Howley came, and as we say, we didn't see a massive improvement in our attack. Howley and Gatlin were always going to be back together again, weren't they?
I think
I'm not a fan of. Go on, Holly.
So I was going to say, the problem for me is Alex King is very much in vogue of what attack coaches need to be at the moment, which is a set piece strike move thing. And that depends on winning ball and having a solid scrum and a solid line out. And actually, when you looked at bits in the autumn when things worked and some of the set plays we ran, when they worked really well. So actually, I think he was doing a good job.
Yeah.
The problem
is...
The
first try they scored against Fiji was a great try.
If anyone is playing Rap Bingo, you can have the whole Harley blames Humphreys mark tick, because it comes down to the fact if we're not winning the ball because the pack's getting bullied, it doesn't matter who the attack coach is.
No.
We could have Scott Razor Robinson as an attack coach. It's not, we're going to get screwed. We could have Tony Brown, who's making the Springboks look like the rugby equivalent of the Harlem Globetrotters. But they can only do that because they've got a pack that gives you dominant ball. So and remember now, like during this last part of Gatlin Part 1, everyone was bemoaning Cowley's lack of attacking powers.
True.
And the whthe rugby chaos where we had basically, it was not quite give it to Shane because we didn't have a Shane, but it was, let's see what players can do. The 2019 Six Nations, that only got kicked off because of Thomas Williams doing some mad shit. It's basically a couple of moments of magic and a dodgy bounce that allowed George North to score 2 tries late on. For me, this is just pointing back, and we sort of saw when we were talking about the squad. It's just saying Gatland hasn't learned from anything. He's just gone, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I've always done, but with players who are less suited to it each time. So this is clearly we're going back to kick heavy, Warren ball, and then hoping for some moments of magic. And, we're hoping for the likes of Liam Williams and Thomas Williams to come up with something.
But I think that's half of Howley's problem, is that he plays to such a rigid system, and when that system doesn't work, there isn't a plan B, and then players just go off script because they have to, and players like Thomas Williams and Liam Williams will go off script. And Tompkins, imagine Tompkins going off script. I mean, that's when we created tries, and then people go, "Oh yeah, great, okay, we've got a plan B." We don't have a plan B. Howley's plan A is hold the ball for 90 seconds, wear them down, bring them in, and after 90 seconds, if we haven't gone over, if we're not in their 22 after 90 seconds, kick it. That's his plan, and I've never been a fan of him. I think we've got lucky a couple of times, but I've never been a fan, so I'm not exactly over the moon with this move. But he had to do something because, like you say, King just wasn't. It wasn't working. But I agree with you as well, Harley. It's never going to work if you've got a pack of forwards that are going backwards all the time. So that's my piece. All yours, James.
Okay, then let's look at some contract and signing news then, or the rumour mill. So, Ewan Stevens and Mason Grady, they've signed new deals at Cardiff. Very good news in particular about Mason Grady. Good news for Welsh Rugby, good news for Cardiff. And it's been reported in Wales Online and the South Wales Argus that Tame Basham is leaving Dragons and then for Cardiff. No real surprise for me, I have to be honest. I've been saying pretty much all season that I felt this was going to be Tame's last season. He wasn't very good last season. I felt he went off the boil, but the Dragons gave him a 1-year deal. And I thought then it was a little bit sus giving him 1 year, but he's been constantly linked with a move for the past 2 years. He's had half the English Premiership chasing after him. Slightly surprised he's going to Cardiff though, because the word was Scarlets were heavily interested in Tane. I think that would have been an interesting move for him, but you can't blame him, can you? You're in a team that's just hopeless and losing every week. It's going to take its toll, and it probably is affecting his Wales chances, even though that he has got the likes of Jack Morgan ahead of him and Tommy Raffel. So he has got competition there, but maybe this is the move he needs, a fresh environment, a fresh start. David Buttress was on X on Sunday. He was coming out doing firefighting and trying his best to play it down, saying stuff like he's happy with how the squad is shaping up for next season and he's happy with the recruitment so far. We can't focus on one bit of news, but I just think it's a load of guff, to be honest. I think it's a really bad luck for the Dragons when one of your key homegrown players decides to play for your local rivals down the road. I think it's a damning indictment, actually, I think, of where the Dragons are at the moment. So, yeah, I don't blame Tane. Best of luck to him. I saw this coming, to be honest, but yeah, a blow for the Dragons, but interested to see how he gets on in Cardiff, really.
Can I just ask, Harley, where do you think that leaves Thomas Young?
I think that's a sign that he's going. I mean, it's been strong. I mean, in the sort of background, it's been strongly suggested he is leaving the Arms Park, which I think for me is probably the bigger loss with it, because I mean, as great as Basham can be, Thomas Young's a game breaker, and you could see, even against the Sharks, he was pulling rabbits out of hats and getting key turnovers, which isn't really Basham's game. He's probably going to add to our carrying game because he is undoubtedly a fantastic carrier, and actually maybe even a pack where we've got a few more extra carriers, it's not all going to be on him. So when he does get his hands on the ball, it's going to be more impactful. Mm-hmm. My biggest problem with Tame, particularly from whenever I watch him in derbies, is he's very prone to giving away stupid penalties. Which, to be fair, does mean he is perfectly suited for this Cardiff team.
Perfect for your lot, then should be suited fine.
Hang on, most of our penalties now are scrum. That's not stupid. That's just being bad at your job.
Yeah.
We'll have a look later and when on stats and what have you, and we'll have a look at the Cardiff scrum and where Tame Basham stands in a couple of other standings. You'd be surprised where he comes top, to be honest, or in the top 5. So
Ali is right though. He has a tendency to give away dull penalties. I've talked about it on Dragon's Lair, but he is a dynamic ball carrier, and I think he's talented. He's one of those players that other supporters of other regions don't particularly rate, but I've always rated Tane. I wish him all the best. His breakdown work isn't as strong as other flankers, but he is a game changer. I think he's a really good player, but I think his discipline has been an issue, and obviously he needs to work on his breakdown skills. But best of luck to him. I think he's very talented. So it is a blow from the Dragons. We can't sugarcoat it. He has been our best player this season, I would say. And like I said, I think it's a damning indictment, really, when your local boy goes and signs for the rivals down the road. But like I said, that's just where the Drags are heading, and it's not particularly good, to be honest. Okay, so that's that then. Scarlet's back rower, Carwyn Tupelotu, he's joined Saracens on a short-term loan, which is quite interesting. The 23-year-old's been brought in by Saracens as cover following injuries and international call-ups in the back row. So yeah, I'm keen to see how he gets on there. That's Saracens, hope he'll kick on a bit. And then in other news, Darryl Akey signed a new deal to remain with the Ospreys, which is good news following Jack Morgan's re-signing. So yeah, good news for the Ospreys, good news for Welsh Rugby. And then regional under-18s results. Scarlet's under-18s, they're cooking with gas. They really are cooking with gas. So they thumped Cardiff, didn't they? They put 51 points on them, and they thumped the Dragons as well. They put 50 points on them at Ystrad. So the final score was Dragons under-18s 12, Scarlet's under-18s 50, and then the Ospreys had a very narrow win against RGC 17-14. So Scarlet's under-18s, they're looking really, really good, and the future's bright, I think, for the Scarlet's pathway, because they look very, very good so far, don't they? The results are impressive. 100 points in 2 games. Not bad, is it?
Well, we've got a couple of
brothers. Sorry.
Oh, go on. You were going to make a serious point.
Sorry. We've got James Fender's brother and Lewis Lloyd's brother playing for us.
Yeah, but they're not scoring 100 points in 2 games, mate. So it's a nice try. It
was the weather was bad in St Helens on Sunday.
Oh, is that an excuse now, Nick? Is it?
Well, we haven't played it yet. We haven't played yet. We've won 2 as well.
Go on, Harley. What were you saying, Harley?
I was going to say, I don't know how these Scarlet's pathway players are going to come through, though, because they haven't got their finishing school at Jersey Reds anymore.
It's true.
Because usually the sign is get him up to the point where they're a good, decent internet pro player, and then buy him in even more expensively.
Yeah, send them up to Jersey for a season and then buy him back. Well, we'll just use Amtil now, don't we? Amtil and Nottingham. That's where they.
I'm surprised you haven't got Coventry players and Hughes doing some secret scouting up there.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is my favourite player for the last 2 seasons, Tian Sparrow, that there was a couple of moments where we thought his career might be over with a really nasty illness, is back on track, played for Llandovery on the weekend, and is carving it up, is well on the road to recovery. And as predicted, I would be shocked if he's not back in the Scarlets Academy next season. Shocked. So there we go. Are we done with news there, Jim?
Yes, we are.
We are fantastic, righty-ho. So I hope our YouTube listeners, our YouTube watchers enjoyed that little bit where I was going, crap, I haven't got that story there, so we'll make it look like we have. So if you are liking what you're hearing and what you're seeing on YouTube and on audios, please do give us a like and a rate and a subscribe. You'll catch all of the other pods, all of the Rewind, the women's pod, which was out last week, Harley, and did really well, right down to the SRC and all of the feeder pods. So, plenty to keep you busy through the international season. So let's kick off with the reviews of last week's games then. So Friday night, Nick, Ospreys entertained Benetton. Now, we spoke about the weather a bit last week and on the Erie, whichever way you want to do it, doesn't matter. But turns out it didn't play that much of an effect for most of the game, wasn't it? So tell us what you thought about that game, mate.
Well, I put it down I thought we'd win. even though Benetton have got a lot of money and have got as quite a extensive squad, even without their main Italian players. There was on paper a lot of quality in their team. I just still thought we'd win because I thought we've had a good little run now. Obviously, I didn't expect us to win from my prediction anywhere near as well as we did because there's been a history of close games, both home and away with Benetton. We actually blew them out of the water. They were in the game the first 5 minutes. They had a try disallowed. You can argue the wrongs and rights about that. But after that, other than that, it was Zuzu, the flanker, which Lewis Lloyd chased him down, did his calf at the same time, but they never looked like scoring. Our defence was superb, and you can see how our team's evolving. There's definitely more emphasis on taking a few more chances. In the past, we'd never run the ball from our own 22. It had always been kick first. So you have to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt because Benetton was so poor. So I want to see if we can still play that expansive game, wide game against a better team. But, you can only play what's in front of you. And again, we played very, very well. And also, I like the way the centres combined. Boshoff, I believe, is on a loan contract until the end of the year. I would be very keen to get him signed up on a permanent contract. He looked like a decent outside centre option, which is where I feel we could do with strengthening. And I don't suppose, I'm not trying to do him out of money, but he's not going to cost the earth. I wouldn't have thought. And then obviously, I thought Owen Williams had his best game. I've seen him at 10 for a long time. He ran the show well. Brought Kieran Williams in on a short ball. Kieran Williams showed a variety to his game as well, which often he's been criticised for not offering. Our wings were very good. Jack Walsh as a second receiver played really well. Pack did what we were used to. Again, Spencer's been a really good pickup. Another one I'd like to see having a 2-year contract or longer. He'd certainly would do a job for us if Beard is going. So yeah, absolutely delighted. I thought we were superb. I think it's our best win for something like 70 years, and to nil them as well showed some determination in defence. As I say, I think the bigger question is how poor Benetton were really for a team with all that money, all those resources. But we'll take that. Thank you very much. 6 tries. And 5 points.
That was going to be my next question to Jamie. Was just how poor were Benetton? How good were the Ospreys? But to me, there were a couple of times there where Benetton just didn't. They gave up on chasing tackles really, really easy. There were kicks that they weren't chasing. Do you know what I mean? How poor do you think Benetton were, Jay?
I thought they started off okay, and they had that try disallowed, didn't they? Which some people said should have been given, but I can understand why he wasn't given because it did look like a knock-on. Yeah, very unlike Benetton. That's not what we expect from Benetton these days. That was the Benetton of old. I thought that performance, just how easily they gave up. But yeah, you can argue how poor Benetton was. We have got to give credit to the Ospreys. I thought they were terrific. Justin Tipperick is, well, he's just outstanding, isn't he? Rolling back the years. I agree. Boshoff was fantastic. But yeah, Benetton be very disappointed. They've had a strange season, Benetton. I expected them to really kick on and challenge for the top 8. But yeah, they've had a very patchy season so far, haven't they? But yeah, very disappointed from a Benetton point of view. But not being funny, this is a Welsh Rugby podcast. Who cares? That's their problem, not the Ospreys' problem. If they, don't turn up, that's fine. Credit to the Ospreys. They got the job done and they nailed them. It's a really good achievement, even if Benetton were poor, because you can only beat what's put in front of you, can't you, at the end of the day?
Absolutely. And Harley, do you have anything to add? Are you just going to agree with Ospreys are good and Benetton were bad?
Yeah, I mean, Benetton is playing so much less than some of their parts. Ospreys now we're starting to see actually play maybe slightly more than some of their parts now. So something me and Hugh have started eating humble pie on now is that we're seeing Ospreys that we imagine with the names they've got in their team sheet. We're starting to see the actual potential in them actually going. We have started making the joke about maybe Booth was the problem all along, because we've had like a couple of seasons where they got to a certain level and then it stopped and the game plan has stayed the same. They're supposedly developing the attack that's never happened, and then basically ever since Booth went, we're seeing an Ospreys side that are managing to manage. They're blending that heavy forward dominance and giving the back something to do as well. So they're actually capitalizing on this, and it's not just trudging, hoping for penalties. Because also, Benson only gave 7 penalties away, so there's no way you can score 43 points just on seven penalties, just by kicking the corner and mauling. The one stat that this highlights A, how bad Benetton were, but B, how good Osprey's defence was. 52% of the Benetton possession was between the Ospreys 22 and the halfway. So they camped right outside. I mean, they had 22% in the 22. Like, that's enormous. The big bulk of any time Benetton got the ball was in the Ospreys half, and they couldn't get anything from it. Even if it was threes or whatever. So that that is good defense. And maybe that's what helped make the Benetton attack poor. You've got the disjoints, but with the likes of players like Thomas Gaggio, who is the starting Argentinian loosehead and considered one of the best in the world. Augustin Creevy, who has just retired from international rugby, but again considered one of the greats. Issaquah, the blindside, sort of sport of a 6-7 combo, the under-20s captain, and just someone who everyone rates. World Cup winner Malachi Fekatoa, Andy Uren, who was never going to be an international, but is a good pro scrum half. Thomas Albanaz was the form 10 in the rugby championship. And you just keep looking at these names. All right, towards the bench it got a bit ropey, but you still had Zilocchi, who's an Italian international. Ospreys had 4 internationals that I could see. All right, one of them is Justin Tipperick, and that's worth a team on its own. But the other one's Kieran Williams, who only had 1 cap. It's you've got two extremes there, but Benetton should have been playing better than that. But as Jamie says, Ospreys beat them, then you can only beat what's in front of you, and it was nice to see them being ruthless and putting the foot on the throat.
Absolutely. So let's move on to Scarlet Edinburgh then, which intense was a fair description of that game. I mean, some of the hits that were going in were absolutely massive. It was a proper mid-table battle where both sides are probably capable of playing a few positions higher. There are calls for Sean Everett to go now after that game, which, like I say, don't care. But that was a lot of Edinburgh people are very unhappy about that game. I mean, for us, the big moment of controversy for us was going for the kick at the end instead of going for the 3-point for the corner and going for the driving line. The disappointing thing for me is we're really good at driving lines now. We used to be really good at passing the ball and creating open, expansive play and running it from here, there, and everywhere. And we were really poor at doing some of the basic stuff. Now we know how to defend in tight. We defended 3 5-yard lineouts and stopped them. They didn't get anything from 3 of their 5-yard lineouts. And we're scoring off 5-yard lineouts, but we've forgotten how to pass the ball and how to run. Once we meld them two together, I'll be happy, because it's the potential is there. We had a full back line away with Wales, and we still managed to turn out, apart from scrum half, so we still managed to turn out a fairly decent backs performance. Should we have gone for the corner at the end? I think not. I think we took the right decision. I think we've lost too many games by 1 point there, 2 points there. I think we got to take it in steps and go, do you know what? Let's just win the game. It'd be lovely to go walk away with a bonus point, but let's just win the game. Let's get used to winning the game first and not lose it. If we screw up that line out and they run it back and they go length of the pitch and dot it down under the posts and we lose, there'd be absolute uproar. People would be asking for various people's heads and all of that kind of malarkey. So I guess, be realistic. Compared to where we were last season, it's a really competitive mid-table. Take the points, put the kick over, take the points, come off the park with a win, move on to the next game. I think the only bit where we are poor now is in the last 20. When we start to make the substitutions, it's really showing that we haven't got the quality and depth that we have got when we got a full squad there. So that bit is a bit concerning. But other than that, it was a really, really good game. It was a tense game. It ended like a cup game because Edinburgh really came back into it and gave us hell for those last 10 minutes. And to come away with a win on that was good. Really enjoyed it. Oh, I won't say I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it after the final whistle. Those last 10 minutes were absolute hell. The dogs were hiding and all sorts of stuff. It was not pleasant at all. Both slippers were thrown at the telly. There was all sorts of stuff going on. So, yes. Would anybody
Yeah, I'll
care
cut
to
you.
chip
I
in?
thought Johan Lloyd had his best game at 10 I've ever seen him play. He actually offered some control. We all know what he can do, ball in hand, and he's a very exciting runner, isn't he? But I actually thought he controlled the game very well. Kicked when he needed to kick. His kicking was pretty accurate, and I thought he complemented Gareth Davis very well. As I say, he looked like a proper 10 to me in that game, where I've not often thought he does look like that.
Yeah, I think the stats show that as well, that he was a bit more controlling, but still beating defenders. And Charlie Titkin came on and didn't screw anything up, which it's hard when you come on at 10 with 15 minutes to go and you're under the cosh. So, but I thought he played okay as well. So, Jamie, Harley, any thoughts on Scarlets? I saw that,
Well,
Jay. Your face
no, but
let you down.
the problem is I haven't seen the full game because obviously I was heading out for Ronnie Price, so I saw bits of it. And for what I saw, I thought Johnny Williams was very good. I still don't think he's at national standard. I know people are saying get him in the Wales squad. I'm not buying into that. I think he's a very, very good cup player, but I don't think he's at national standard. Marcus van der Merwe, he is the signing of the season so far. How good has he been? I tell you what was funny. I was listening to Scrum 5 before we started recording, and Gareth Rousseau said on there that he was making reference to the fact that Scarlets had 7 non-Welsh qualified players in their pack. And he was suggesting that people in the WRU in the upper echelons are not entirely happy with the fact that Scarlets got an almost non-Welsh qualified pack. And I'm thinking, well, that's all good and well. On the one hand, I understand, but I'm thinking, they do sign off these players. You've got to have approval from the WRU when you bring in these foreign players. So it's a little bit weird for them to say, yeah, we're not happy with this, but we got signing off anyway. So I just thought that was an interesting point. But it's worked for them, isn't it? I don't think it's entirely beneficial for Welsh Rugby for Scots to have an almost non-Welsh qualified pack, if I'm being honest. But it's worked. And Van der Merwe, Max Douglas, they've been good signers, haven't they? For 50 of his class, we know how good Lousy is. Yes, he can be a bit of a penalty machine at times, but he's a good player for the Scarlets. So they just look a better team than they Scarlets. They got a bit more fighting. They look tougher up front. I think the pack has been the biggest strength for them. Last season they was pretty weak scrum going backwards, but they just look tougher, more abrasive, and credit to Peel. He got a lot of stick.
Yeah,
We all know that.
last year.
A lot of supporters were calling for his head. They've been very unhappy, but he's turned it well. Mind you, I think Lee Jones coming in has been pretty good as well. I don't think he's getting enough credit. I think that's been a very good appointment because obviously Peel can lean on someone like Lee Jones on this experience. So it's been a good season for the Scarlets, isn't it? If I was a Scarlets fan, I'd be pretty pleased with how it's going so far. Good win. Very good win.
Yeah.
Well, I remember listening to the podcast you did in the summer when you did what you were hoping for the season. And, I think everybody was very realistic. And at the moment, the trajectory of the Scarlets is positive. And, I think they got more points already than they had last season. And they will pick up other wins and points again.
Yeah. Yes. We've got the same amount of points there now as we finished last season.
Yeah.
So, and 8 games to go.
And you'll win some more games easily and pick up other points.
Oh, there you go. See, Nick, you just jinxed it there, man. That's it. It's all downhill from there. That's far too confident. Harley,
Well,
any thoughts quickly on Scarlett?
I think it's all basically being covered. I mean, yeah, again, they've got this non-Welsh qualified pack, which is why they probably weren't interested in Bash and realised he was Welsh qualified and went, nah, we'll save it for Australian 7.
It works.
Yeah.
Right. So we go from the highs of just edging and scraping a win against Edinburgh to Cardiff and the Sharks. Take us through the game, Harley, because it felt like you were out of the game at one point, and then it felt like you were coming back into it, and then you went, "Oh no, we're out of it," and you're gone.
Yeah, it was such a great game. If I wasn't a Cardiff fan, that would have been brilliant. Because I was a Cardiff fan, I would just spent most of the time somewhere between crying and shouting. It was, yeah, basically everything that's been great and everything that's been terrible about Cardiff in one game. Scrum on skates. To be fair, once again, Rhys Barrett doing quite, although they were going backwards, they managed to at least keep it so Mike Adamson wasn't constantly whistling, although that could just be him bottling calls as ever. Line-out was slightly dodgy, though it says we still only messed up 2, which it felt more than that, especially with like us trying to outmaul the Sharks, which is a stupid idea. As soon as that'd been moving, we should have whipped it away. It was quite interesting. When we could keep on the ball, we caused the Sharks all sorts of problems. They could not deal with multi-phase attack, which is something for anyone who's playing them for just to watch out for. They do lose that again, but then they could just pull out moments of magic, and combined with Cardiff's love of making business decisions in defence, it did lead to a couple of very easy tries. Bongin Banambi probably scored one of the easiest maul tries I've ever seen. I don't actually think the maul setting, he'd fallen on the line and couldn't quite believe he'd gotten there so quickly. But, and I mean, the one thing I really want to bring out is Johan Mulder actually surprised a lot of people. His box kicking was excellent. It was causing the Sharks backfield all sorts of problems. And you combine that with Tom Bowen, who I think just had one of those games. Wow, the guy was just carving through defence. Similar to like Johan Lloyd's last season, no one could tackle him. I think it's a small thing, like the chaos that's gonna happen next season with the pair of them on the pitch. Like, I'm not saying we're kind of going to win more games, but my God, is it's going to look more funny.
You're going to be great. By the time you get to Christmas next year, you're either going to be Jamie Bald or me Gray. Yeah, you're going to be in between the two of us, because it is not going to be.
I'm going to end up with some sort of weird
watch
thing where I've gone for like a Pepe Le Pew skunk as it's starting to recede, just to really go for something weird. Yeah, I thought it was a great game. I think one question a lot of fans have put out after the pod was about the subs, and Jockey he made the choice to bring Rory Thornton on early, which I thought was quite good. Same with changing the front row. That sort of bolster gave us that impetus to get back, and then it sort of lulled, and the Sharks were starting to get back into it. And I think you could tell we were tired, particularly those last 2 tries we conceded. That was just tiredness. And I think had we brought Mackenzie Martin on Jacob Beetham, just 2 big physical lads, just to add some extra energy, that might have, maybe not have won, but it would have at least kept that scoreline down to within 7, I think.
What did you make of the alleged eye gouge in the bit where was it your replacement hooker tried to strip?
Yeah, so yeah. I just to sort of talk through it. So there's a bit of a fumble. Evan Daniel, like all good players, carries on playing. Decides to go for a cheeky chip and chase. But Pimpy comes in, swings an arm into his face. One, right? He does go for the swinging arm. Evan Daniel sort of takes exception to that, as they do. Grabs Mapimpi, pulls his shirt off, and then next thing you know, you see Mapimpi's hand going, and it's clearly making contact with his face, like in the eye area. And it's not that he does it once as if to push him away. He's going multiple times. Now, that's clearly just a heat of the moment thing from Mapimpi, because you see him play, he never even gets involved in scuffles usually. Like, he's quite a mellow guy, and you look in interviews, he's incredibly chilled. But at that moment, the thing that annoys me is we've had this issue with this particular ref and this particular TMO before, where they will not pull up things like this, because same as I was saying that he bottled decisions, whereas Cardiff probably should have had a few more scrum penalties against him, and I almost definitely a yellow card for one of the props, just because the way we just could not keep that scrum at bay. that should have been looked at. Like that was, even if that's saying a thing. I mean, it's been cited now, so we'll see what comes of it.
Oh, it has been cited, is it?
Yeah,
Rightly so.
Like at the time, I went, that's just no, like that you could hear the oohs in the Elms Park. Apparently, not a lot of the replays weren't actually being shown in there, according to Dan. But like you could sort of feel like there's a, and you know,
it's one of those things. Once they know that there's something a little bit iffy in a replay, they stop it, and they don't want to kind of fuel the they don't want to fuel the crowd in the stadium, and they don't want people at home on social media going, what's going on with that. So forgetting, of course, that for most of us, you can rewind live TV and play it back and forth as many times as you want.
Well, they kept replaying it on the TV. I think that was more a technical issue more than anything, because then we're seeing a lot of basically throughout the whole game replays weren't being shown.
Right.
So you get so it stops a bit jumpy, which sometimes those old screens do.
Ali, what a Cardiff
Cap needs redoing.
Sorry. Ali, what a Cardiff doing right to get such good crowds?
I think it's a lot of things. So one, just by virtue of being in the centre of the city, and you can just have a few good points, you can go out. It's easy. Two, I think the tickets. I mean, I know they're about on par with all the Welsh regions, but when you consider how much you have to pay to go to, I think when I went with my step brother-in-law and his son to Exeter, they were 80 quid a ticket for Exeter Gloucester. It was one of the higher end, so it's their grandstand thing, but still,
yeah.
I think even the cheaper ones are usually about 40 quid. So there's the pricing's right. I think they market it. I think Mike and the marketing communications team does a absolute blinder of trying to do things like promotions like student nights. Oh, and it helped for this particular game. You could sell, we've got World Cup winners coming in, because the Sharks have got so many injuries, they had no choice but to send the World Cup winners. Yeah. That is one thing you've got to remember. Like there were 4 international props, an international hooker. I think one of the second rows has been capped now. The back rows are people who've gone from the lines to there to get their international caps. Jordan Hendricks has not lost against a Welsh team. And Jaden Hendricks is brilliant. Grant Williams. These are names that should be on posters in people's rooms, we're playing little Tom Bowen, who's still technically an academy lad. Like he could be playing for the under-20s next week or this week.
I'm young at that
having
age
just played World Cup wingers.
I like the way you went. They were forced to send all of the World Cup winners, Ali. I mean, they didn't want to put their best team out against us, but they absolutely they were in no other choice. Where so many people were injured, they had to put all their World Cup winners on. It must be hell for them. I mean, how
must be hell. But also for them, I think there was also the slight point of pride of the fact that Sharks hadn't beaten Cardiff yet in the URC.
I knew it would come up.
I'd like to point out it's still losing by 20 points to a box blame team isn't as bad as being beaten 35-0 at home.
Can I ask a further question?
Yeah.
Go on, quick.
Tom Bowen was electric, but can he pass?
I think he can. I just think he chooses not to.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I think he did. I think he did get a couple of passes because I'm pretty sure he made the pass for who was it? Our first try. I can't remember who ran in. Alex Mann. He said it. So, I mean, when he's carving through defenders, one thing I do find though is he seems to want to beat another defender every time. There are a few times when he could have gone for the line and he's gone for the defender.
Yeah,
which is just like, this is what I'm saying. Him and Johan Lloyd are going to be fun, chaos, and grey hair inducing next season.
Yeah.
Because they both like it.
I just want to pick up on something there that links your game and Jamie's game that we're going to talk about next, and something that you might want to pick up on, James, because I saw this today. The score difference between Cardiff and the Sharks and between Dragons and Munster wasn't actually that different. The both sides lost by a fair old chunk. But the way the Cardiff game has been reported and the way the Dragons game has been reported, very, very different. Is that a chip on the shoulder, or is that how are you seeing it? And then talk us through the Dragons game.
No, because Cardiff have always been favourable in the Welsh rugby media. That's just a fact. And actually, if you look at the Dragons Munster game, that scoreline did not reflect the game. Cardiff were competitive. Yeah, they were well beaten by Sharks, but they were competitive. Dragons were not competitive in that game. And that scoreline flatters the Dragons, to be quite honest with you. So, fine, let's just go straight into it then. So, 31-0 at halftime. I mean, it's difficult to know what to say about the Dragons at the moment. They just look absolutely hopeless. 21 points scored in the space of 4 minutes. And I think the bonus point try was secured after just 20 minutes. There were people leaving the stadium at halftime, which is, I guess, that's what happens when you give away so many free tickets, because there were a lot of freebies given away for that game. There was over 1,000 free tickets given away. It was bring a friend for free as well for season members. So people were talking about the crowd, but actually there was it was a decent crowd, don't get me wrong, 4,500, but there was a lot of freebies given away. It was just an embarrassing first half performance, wasn't it? And it's what we've seen now from the Dragons in the past few games: passive defense, losing collisions, falling off tackles, men against boys, as we saw against the Lions. Look, it didn't help that they lost Tane Basham and Rodrigo Martinez to early injuries, and Lloyd Evans got sin-binned in the first 20 minutes. But in the second half, there was a little bit more of a fight back, I thought, something to cheer. I thought Harry Wilson made an impact off the bench, putting aside that one pass that ended up in row J. To be fair to him, he did create and score a try, which is encouraging, but I can kind of see why the Dragons have been reluctant to play him. He has got a lot of work on. I don't think he's a very good passer of the ball, and I think his defense is a little bit suspect. But I just think if you're going to bring a guy over from the other side of the world, you've got to know if he's any good. And he should have played more games, Harry Wilson. He should have been given more opportunities, in particular in the Challenge Cup, I felt. Because you just got to know if he's up to it. I think there is a player there, but like I said, he's got a lot of work on. But I thought that was an encouraging impact off the bench, at least. It was a better second half from the Dragons, but it was game over after 20 minutes and the damage was done. And I think this is the problem we got with the Dragons now. So, look, the Dragons are serial losers, and they have been for the best part of the decade. That's just who they are. The problem now is they're not competitive. So losing is one thing, but if you're competitive, it's encouraging because you can work on that. But the Dragons now, they're not competitive, and they're losing games in the first 20, 30 minutes, and that's not acceptable anymore. And with Zebra's win out in Ulster, that excellent win, fair play to them. And I did say on this pod, and I've been saying on Dragons List, Zebra are improved, and they're going to cause a few teams a few bloody noses, and we've seen that. They're now 8 points ahead of the Dragons. So I think that's it now. I think Dragons will finish bottom of the table because I just don't see them winning another game this season. I looked at the fixture list today, and I just cannot see for the life of me where they are now, where this win is going to come from, because they just look shot to pieces physically and mentally. Yes, injuries have played their part. We can't, overlook that. I don't want to come on here and make excuses, no, but we have got a really crippling injury list. Solomon Fanaki played for Newport on the weekend, Super Rugby Cymru, and guess what happened? He went off after 32 minutes and got injured. Him and Steve Cummins have been a total waste of money. The recruitment has been poor, which is another reason why Dragons are in the mess they're in now. So I just think the Dragons now, they're reaping what they sow, for bad recruitment, bad decision making, penny pinching, appointing trainee coaches, and the owners promising to invest when all they've done is just penny pinch. And I think it's really showing now. So the worst thing for me is since they parted company with Di Flanagan, they've got worse. They have got worse since Di has gone. At least in that first block, we all said that, okay, the Dragons only won one game, but they were competitive. They didn't disgrace themselves when they went to Dublin and played Leinster. The only game that was really bad was away to Connacht, and that was Di's last game. But since then, it's just been a total mess. It's been a disaster of the season for the Dragons. Philo Tiatia looks like he doesn't want to be there, but yeah, he's front runner to be head coach. And yeah, I just don't see a future for the Dragons. I really don't. I'm struggling. Even as a season ticket holder now, I'm thinking, what's the point? I cannot see how they're going to get better, because all we've had from the owners is just jam tomorrow, absolute waffle. We're going to bring in quality, recruitment. Well, who's going to want to play for the Dragons? Who is going to play for what I consider now to be the worst team in Europe? They're certainly the worst team in the URC. I do believe they're the worst team in Europe now. Why would you sign for him? Why would you sign for a team of serial losers? Where's the quality going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? So, yeah, I think Dragons in a hell of a mess, to be honest, on and off the field. But hey, we own our own stadium. We're the most stable region, so everything's okay, even though we're embarrassing shit show on it. That's kind of where the Dragons owners are coming from, but it's not good enough, I'm afraid.
For anyone that's in any doubt, Jamie's in a really bad place with the Dragons at the minute, and I don't think you're on your own, Jamie.
I'm definitely not on my own. I've spoken to a lot of supporters who feel the same as me. I've spoken to supporters who I've only been a season ticket holder for nearly 10 years, mind, because I lived in London for a few years. I'm speaking to people online and in person who have been season ticket holders for nearly 20 years, and even they have said, I've had enough because every year is shit. But this year in particular, it just feels like there's no hope. And the owners have got a lot to answer for, actually. And I'm looking forward to the Q&A. But unfortunately, I do feel, and I've been to a few Q&As at the Dragons before, so I tell you how it works. You go there, they speak very well. You come out of it and you think, oh yeah, this sounds encouraging. You know, we're signing quality players and we're going to make money from the carriage patch. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And then the season starts and it's the same old shit. And it comes to a point where even die-hard fans are going to say, nah, no more. I've had enough. They're going to lose a lot of supporters to Drag. They need to pull a rabbit out of the hat. They need to either bring in an experienced head coach, but I don't think they will. I think they'll appoint Philo Tiatia, and then they'll say, well, we'll bring in an attack coach or maybe a defense coach. Or they got to start bringing in real quality players. But Mike, I keep saying, why on earth would any quality player come to the Dragons? Why would you? Look at them. They're just an absolute mess, aren't they? I'm not wrong in what I'm saying. You know, everyone says the same. You know, supporters of a region said to me, I don't know how you do it. It's Dragons are awful. You know, what's the way forward for them? And I don't know. I really don't know.
Oh, there's, you know, as a Scarlet last season, I had a whole load of people saying the same to me. I'm not a season ticket holder at Scarlet. I live too far away. But I had a lot of people saying, that's it, you know, I'm not renewing and blah, 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 blah. Those people are now starting to go back. You know, once you see something happen, people will go back. So all isn't lost for the Dragons. You know, people walk away, people come back to the game after a while. But you have to give them something to come back to. And for me, Dragons started investing in academy heavily, and I think that's the right way to go. It's frustrating because it takes 2 or 3 seasons to show anything, and then there's no guarantees that anything's actually going to come out of it. But once you've started investing in your academy and you commit to your academy, the pipeline starts to fill, and you start putting more in one end and you start getting more out the other. And I think that's the best way for the Dragons to go in terms of long term. You know, you're talking about developing boys who are going to be the next Basham, you know, boys who will stay there for a long time. And I think that's the way the Dragons need to rebuild. But I agree with you. I don't know if they've got the time to do that now. The time to do that was 5 years ago. Yeah.
This is the problem, and I wrote about this on the weekend. There is a genuine concern now that we brought through a lot of young homegrown players, right? You know, likes of Ackerman, Ewan Ross, Ryan Woodman, these boys. I'm worried now that this is going to have a detrimental effect because if you think about it, they are playing for a losing team, in a losing culture, in a losing organization. That is bound to have an effect on their confidence and performance. If you're continually losing week in, week out, you can't tell me that's not going to have a detrimental effect on these young boys. And I'm worried that they're just going to be so used to failure and it's going to knock their confidence and their performance is going to slide. Because I understand what you're saying about the Scarlets. Yes, I know there were people saying we're going to walk away hard enough, but this is the difference between the Scarlets and the Dragons, right? The Scarlets have had a lean couple of years, right? The Dragons have been piss poor for the best part of the decade. This hasn't been the past 2 or 3 years. They have been poor for the best part of 10 years. And that's why people have had enough. This isn't a rough patch they're going through. This isn't a lean couple of years of rough patch. This is decline over a decade now. And something has got to change dramatically. But I don't know if the owners are committed enough to pump the money in. And I just don't see a future where they're going to put all this money, we're going to sign all these quality players. The only person I've seen linked to the Dragons so far is Tina Stabia. With the greatest respect, that is not a guy that's going to elevate the Dragons. He's a decent player. Yes, he did well for Cardiff, unexpected success. They need better than Tina Stabia. They got to go out and sign proper quality players. But the question is, who can they attract, or why would you go to one of the worst teams in Europe right now? It's a tough one for the Dragons.
The other thing is as well is that there's definitely quality youngsters in the region, but they need some experience. I think we're going to talk about the 20s later. And they've got a few players in the 20s, but they've got to have some old heads to lean on. Okay, and it's even if it's not getting many wins, just to be more competitive. But at the moment, you're just throwing the youngsters under the bus.
That's the problem, Nick, and that's why I'm worried about. You got these youngsters have been thrown into the deep end, no leadership, no experience, getting battered, games being won within the first 25 minutes. That's not good for Welsh Rugby. We cannot have a situation. This is a pod for another time, I know, but it's not good for Welsh Rugby when you got 3 competitive teams who, let's face it, could be in the top 8. They could be in the top 8. I'm not saying they definitely will be, but there's no reason why Cardiff, Scots and Oxford could be in the top. They're kicking on. We're all on the same budget. They are kicking on and they are competitive. And you've got the Dragons constantly letting down Welsh Rugby and limping behind. That can't be good for the game. And at some point, something's got to change. Simple as that. It can't go on like this.
Just one thing I want to add in. Sorry for the pile on there, James, but this isn't the first time we've had the whole, we're going to clear out the rot, we're going to bring through the youth. Bernard Jackman did it. And you had like Dan Babas and Josh. Dean Ryan did it, and Bernard Jackman did it before him. He did a huge clear out, and he's trying to bring through the likes of Josh Lewis and Dan Babos, a few other names I can't think of. And those players basically just ended up going to ignominy because there was no one there for them to learn off. And they were, what was it? Paul Ben Dixon, youngest ever URC player, Pro 14, whatever player. And he's basically completely ruined because they were having to throw a 16-year-old at fully grown, in international quality centres, and he just broke because they didn't have some experience to give him time to rest. Because these young players, they shouldn't be thrown straight into things, particularly if you're going to be a crash ball centre. And it's just breaking down, and this constant rot. And I'm sure Gav, either you or Gav mentioned it on one of the journalists, but talking about basically maybe the only thing that'll ever fix it is to rip the whole thing down and start again. But it's not. I think if you did that, and I think if you did that to one of the Welsh sides and tried to rip it down, it wouldn't come back.
We're not going to have a massive clear up because you are quite right. I mentioned as well. It happened under Chapman. It happened under Ryan. We're not going to have a massive clear out. However, there is a core of players in that team, and I've mentioned this on Dragons Lair, who are probably Super Rugby Cymru / English Championship standard. They are not of the standard of URC. And all our regions have put kids in the deep end. It's not the Dragons. All of our kids have done it, but they have not done it when they've been losing week in, week out. With Cardiff, you've had guys like Ray Lilo there. You've had some experience to pass on to the kids. You've had Josh Adams there. You've got Faletau there. Dragons haven't got that quality or experience to pass on to youngsters. So they're being chucked into the deep end in a losing team, losing culture, and they're getting battered to the point now where games are over in the first half. And I want answers at the Q&A. I am going to go. I wasn't going to, but I am going to go. I am expecting Jam tomorrow, but for me, they've really got to start showing, and not just talking, showing what their intentions are for the Dragons. To just come out and say, well, we're the most stable, we own our own region. That doesn't pull punters in, mate. That does not pull punters in. That's not going to get support. So it's time for the owners now to wise up and start showing what their plan is. Because like I said, we can't go on like this. I want 4 teams in Welsh Rugby, but we can't have 3 competitive teams and one constantly limping behind. It can't go on like that, sorry.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's cheer Jamie up with the prediction league, shall we, Harley? Who's top of the prediction league?
It's funny enough. It is still Jamie.
Yes. There we go. See, Jamie, you're top of the league somewhere, mate. You're top of our prediction league.
Yep.
I know it's only the 4 of us.
Jamie's top on 81 points. Then it's Lee on 77, having 2 very good calls with the Cardiff and Dragon scores. And then, then it's me. Then it's Nick on 71. So I'm not having a good season so far because I'm predicting teams to be slightly less shit than they are.
I'm a bit worried now. I'm worried because Lee's catching up now. I'm really going to have to start up in my game.
Yeah, Lee took a leaf out of your book and decided to be really pessimistic for 2 games, and it's worked. And I'm worried about the powers of a pessimistic Lee.
Yeah, I think I just got a little bit lucky with last weekend. After I was watching the scores, I was obviously watching the games, and then they were edging around the 20-point mark, and I'm like, I'm sure I said 20, and it was a bit with the Scarlets, 10 minutes to go, and we were 8 points up, and I was like, no, I said we were 8 points. I said this. Oh, this could be a good week this time. But there we go.
I was gutted that Edinburgh missed a conversion after scoring that try and didn't stop you guys from scoring, because I was like, oh, it'd be so close to mine. And actually, I was saying that me and Jamie predicted the same on that, so there's no way I was catching them on that one.
Yeah. Okay. So, as it was a URC week, Nick, so this will be the first time you would have done this. So I'm bringing back play of the week on those, and we'll put it out on socials tomorrow. So it's not necessarily the best try, but it's the best moment in that game, or the moment in that game where you thought, do you know what, that's what turned it. So, Nick, your Ospreys went first. So, what was your moment of the game in the Ospreys game?
It was Tipuric making that pass, making a little bit of a break, and then offloading for Kasende to score. It was just shows everything about Justin Tipuric, isn't it? You know, he's got the full range of skills. He could be a centre. He's just, he's just everything. He's probably, I would say, one of the best sevens in the professional era. Certainly one of the best Welsh sevens.
What
If
I
not
will
the
say
best, sorry, the best.
What I will say on that final pass that he gives, it is a little bit of luck. He's going down and he just throws it anyway, and it just happens to go into Kasende, and you're just like, he's done all the hard work, thrown it, and it's come off. So fair play to him on that one. So you've
Done it
got
before the late, so if you do
I
it
just
enough,
say
it can't always be
one
luck.
it's one of those things. It just kind of goes, isn't it? So my moment of the week was 78 minutes, and Edinburgh are coming back at us. They've literally just scored a try. We kick it off. We stick it deep into their 22, and Josh McLeod has been absolutely on fire all season. Didn't really see that he was putting attackers in. He didn't have a single turnover until that 78th minute. And he turns the ball over in their 22 and completely ends the game. That's where it ends. So, there were some lovely bits previously in the game. The tap and go try was kind of sweet. But for that moment when you pull that out, and my heart was in my mouth. Although they're going end to end on this one. This ball's going out. One tackle over the ball, job done, and that was it. And that was for me. That was just fantastic. So that was my moment of that game. Harley.
So it was a bit hard for me to pick one moment, because for me, I think just the whole of Tom Bowen's performance, just the way, as we've been talking about him, just careering through defenders and somehow getting away with it. I sort of gone specifically for the clips I'll be posted out with the pod. His try on 43 minutes, where he's just, again, he sort of receives the ball. It doesn't seem like there's anything gone, and he just manages to slice open the Sharks defense, dots it down, and he just looks electric. Apparently, all the Sharks fans afterwards are like going, "Oh, who's that boy?" I just like saying, "Oh, he's a bit handy, isn't he?" And so getting a lot of praise for the young lad. I said he's still eligible for under-20s, and has just been scoring tries past Springbok double World Cup winner Mapazoli Mapimpi. So I think he'd be very happy with his night's work there.
Cool. So, Jamie, you've gone for actually a cracking Dragons try.
Well, my moment of the week is when the final whistle went, so I could get the hell out of Ronnie Parade and go over and have a cup of tea. And I'm not happy with you, Lee, because you haven't done this feature for a few weeks, but now you bring it back on the week where you knew Dragons were going to be an embarrassing shit show, and now I got to try and pick a moment of the week from that. So you've done this on purpose, I'm pretty sure. But no, I am going to go for Dane Blacker's try, because it was a nice try, to be fair. Nice pass from Niall Wynn. Good build-up in attack. Harry Wilson cut a lovely line and put Dane Blacker through. Have a look at Scrum Five's Twitter feed. Sean Holly does analysis on that try, and he refers to Harry Wilson as Harris. A nice pass from Harris. Harris broke the line. It's a lovely pass from Harris. So, yeah, well done, Sean. Great analysis there, mate. It's Wilson.
Cool. Okay. Well, I was going to run through the table and some stats, but we'll save that till next week. They aren't going to change between now and next week, and we will turn our attention to Wales and France on Friday night. I thought we'd abandon Friday night games, but no, they're back. So yeah, let's have a quick round the table. Tell me what you're expecting, who you're hoping to see, what kind of game you're expecting, and then finish with your prediction. So let's go, Harley. You can go first, mate.
So my prediction is pain, and more pain. I think with the squad he's picked, he's specifically gone for some of the more taller players, and particularly in the back three. He's gone on yet again about the left foot kicking option, which says to me it's going to be kick chase heavy, and he's hoping that with the new rules around, or the new interpretations around blocking and allowing access for the kick chase, he's going to be going and hoping that the likes of Josh Adams, Liam Williams, Ellis Mee, I think he's going to be forced to be George North Mark IV. If you're wondering who 2 and 3 are, it's Cuthbert and Grady. And just someone who they can run at strike moves. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dan Evans start, but it's probably going to be Ben Thomas. But I mean, Dan Evans looks like he's just got the mental fortitude, which I think is something some of the other options we've had at 10 don't necessarily have. So, I think if any player's ready at 21, it would be him. I can see the English players being involved a hell of a lot, just purely to retain them. I know we can keep 26. I'd like to see Teddy Williams have a go. So Squidge on his sort of preview for Wales made a good point of that. He is he's the top tackler in the URC, despite missing last round, and he's the top for line-out takes. And actually, he put an interesting stat which I didn't notice, but it was quite interesting. So Ospreys have one of the best line-outs in the URC. Their worst line-out performance was against Cardiff on New Year's Day, and it was basically because of Teddy Williams disrupting their ball and sacking balls and all things. So that's the sort of thing that Adam Beard brought that we're missing now he's not there. So it'd be nice to see if he gets involved off the bench, but I've got a feeling it's probably going to be Chunza in that 19 jersey or Freddie Thomas. But yeah, I said mostly pain.
Do you really think Freddie Thomas will get a nod?
I think off the bench, I think Freddie Thomas, we're going to either see him at 6, or I can see him in like 19 or 20 jersey.
He likes both.
At the very least, he's going to be travelling reserve, just purely so that Gatland can keep that squad together.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's just going to be as cynical as that. I think he's going to do everything he can to try and keep all the English base players in camp, because otherwise Teddy Williams is the only second row who's available for all the training.
Okay. So you're other than pain, and more pain, what's your score prediction then, Harley?
For the France game, Give
me the Tonga game and of course the France game.
I don't know, Lee. You start asking me for predictions for like 3 months down the line. I think it'll be a hiding to nothing. If you want actual numbers, I'd say 40 to, I reckon, 17, and we'll pull some bullshit in the last 10 minutes. When France has already started on the cheese.
And they've got a nice red out of the changing room and sitting on the 22. I
fully expect Untermack and Dupont to pull out a picnic blanket and a basket and just get out some champagne and salmon and strawberries. Because in the women's chat for the women's pod, we've got this wonderful fantasy about them being an old married couple who do have long walks on the beach, sit by the fire together. It's very wholesome content.
Yeah. Okay, Nick, your hopes, expectations, desperation for that game and your prediction.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how they approach it, because if it was one of our teams going to, say, Leinster in the URC game, we'd probably pick a mixed team and target the Italy game. That's how we'd approach a URC game if we had the sort of the two games. I don't really think it makes much difference. I think I'm trying to pick myself who I would pick and who I think Gatlin and the coaches picks, and those are different picks. I think he'll go with a pretty experienced team. Roland's probably get last chance in the second row because of his size. He likes both of them, so he might give both of them a game at 6. Otherwise, he'll move Wainwright to 6, Falatau at 8, Jack obviously at 7. Again, centres. As I think I alluded to, the centre partnership which has worked best for me was Owen Watkin at 12 and Joe Roberts at 13 against France last year. While Joe Roberts was on the field, I think he'll quite agree with Harley. He'll go as big as possible in the back 3. So I think it'll be, Josh Adams, Tom Rogers, and Liam Williams. I'm not sure which wing. Obviously, Josh Adams will play on. So I think that's the route to go. The pack more or less picks itself. I would rather see Henry Thomas at tight head, but whatever reason, he gave him no game time at all. Well, he did allude, didn't he, to some players not being fit enough. Was he one of those players? He seems to have done a good job for me for the Scarlets, but I think he'll be Azarati, Gareth Thomas, and Elliot D, and that's the team really. And then you can argue you want over a couple of subs. I'm going very close, similar score to Harley, 38-17 to France.
Okay. So, Jamie, am I going to get any positivity out of your corner of the pod?
I think you might, because everybody's predicting us to get the wooden spoon, and I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to be positive. I think this game against France, for me, it's about performance because everyone's expecting Wales to lose, and they will lose. No question about that. But if they go there and they put in a competitive performance, a positive performance, and they don't get battered, then I think the mood is going to change going into the Italy game because that's the key game here. It's not actually France, it's Italy. That game is going to decide where Wales finish in the table. Because if they lose against France, which they will, and if they lose against Italy, I don't see Wales winning another game in this tournament, right? So if they put in a competitive, respectable showing against France in Paris, I think fans will be on board with that. I think the Welsh Rugby public will be okay, and it'll lift the mood going into Italy. If we get absolutely battered, then I think the doom and gloom and the negativity surrounding Welsh Rugby, what Gatlin's talking about, that's only going to increase, and that's going to heap a lot of pressure on the players going into our Italy game. For me, we just need to be competitive. We need parity up front. I am interested to see who our centres are going to be because I haven't got a clue. The team is being announced on Wednesday. I can't tell. I'm not going to do it now, but I could go through the Wales team who I think. I do think Gareth Thomas, Elliot and Azarati will probably be the front row, and then you could have Dav Jenkins, Will Rowans. I could go through the team, but I honestly haven't got a clue who Gatland is going to pick for his centres. I just don't know. So that's going to be key for me. And we've got to somehow try and stop Anton Dupont, which is going to be a very tough task in itself. I mean, that guy is incredible. I did see that Damien Penno is out. He's been ruled out with a toe injury. That gives us a little bit of hope. He's a good player. But yeah, I'm expecting a tough test. But I think Wales need to be competitive in this. I really do. Because if they're not competitive and they're battered, then it's the pressure and the negativity is just going to increase. So I'm going to go for a France win, but I'm going to say France by 9. I think we are going to put in a decent performance. I think we need to, because like I said, if we don't, then I think the negativity and the pressure is really going to hype up if we go there and get absolutely battered. But it's going to be tough for Wales. Really tough.
Yeah. So,
you, Lee?
Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be a moment in this game where we're level and we're still in this game and it's going to be tight. And then the ref will blow the whistle and we'll kick off and then it'll change. So, yeah, it's hard, I don't think Gatland is renowned for playing the game around the players that he's got. I think he's renowned for playing a certain style of a game and trying to make players fit that. And I think other teams have kind of evolved. They've kind of gone beyond that and they've kind of moved into a more of a fluid game where different people can play different ways and the game works around players. So, yeah, I think we're still trying to find our feet. We really are, and I think we're going to struggle. I think we'll struggle up front. I would like to see Jack Morgan and Reffel both on the pitch, on the flanks, just because, yeah, I think we need to disrupt that back line. And you've got two players there that can do a lot of damage, particularly to the halfbacks. Maybe not in attack, but certainly in defence, we can stop. And I think we're going to defend an awful lot on Friday night. Sorry. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp as you, Jim. Where I want it to be competitive.
Yeah.
And I think if we're still in it with 20 minutes to go, I think France have a habit of getting rattled. You know, we've seen them do that before, so there's always that chance. But we really just have to stop them playing and bring them down to our level, which is sad to say. It's a sad way of looking at the game, but that's where we are. You know,
No, you're right.
that's the reality
I
of it.
agree.
We've
Yeah.
got to carve them up. We've got to do things that they're not expecting. We've got to take quick lineouts. We've got to take quick tap penalties. We've got to run the ball from our 22 when they're not expecting it and things like that. We really got to mess with their heads. We've got to get in their faces. We've got to put them on the floor and leave them on the floor. We've got to start a few scraps in their 22 and all of this kind of stuff. But put them off their game, stop them, get them into the flow, and we might be in with a chance in the last 20 minutes to do something. Um, my prediction is 20 points to 10 to France. But I would love to see something come back. Like we said earlier, Jim, the three teams in the top half, well, the 2.5 teams, Ospreys were in the top half until end of yesterday. But you know, we've got three teams in the top-ish half of the URC now and starting to play well. There's a bit of confidence starting to return. There's an opportunity now to really springboard Welsh rugby on. I don't have the confidence in Gatland that I do in club rugby, and that is the way it is at the
Did you
minute.
hear Gatland say, write us off at your peril? So Gatland has been saying all this. And to be fair, in the past, this worked, hasn't it? How many times has Gatland said, yeah, write us off? He loves all that and he's thrived on it and he's used it to his advantage. The problem is now we've lost so much experience. I just don't think we've got the quality of players anymore to be able to back that up. That's the problem. But I just think on Friday night, nobody's expecting us to win. Go there, give it a good crack, be competitive, give the Welsh public something to be hopeful about. Because, like I said, if we get absolutely pummeled, it's only going to increase the negativity. Social media is going to be, oh, we're going to get the one spoon. You know, we need a positive performance from Wales. We need a competitive performance, and I think we are capable of it. But you know, we have got to be very, very good because this France team, you know, they're pretty good, and I think they are favourites of Six Nations. By the way, I think they need to win the Six Nations. They've been running up now
Definitely.
too many times the past few years, and I actually think
5 out of
that they
4,
could do
other
with
than
it.
the one where
Yeah,
they won the Grand Slam.
so they're under pressure now. I think they got to start delivering France, but big game for them.
I suppose
I just want to
you know,
quickly rebuttal
go on.
some of the Lee stuff, if that's all right. Purely because we know Reffel and Morgan doesn't work unless we've got a referee who's willing to let us get away with a bit more of the breakdown, because we don't have anyone in that pack who can size down players that allows Reffel easy ball access over the ball. With players like Jim Botham and Jack Morgan, you don't necessarily need that because they're very good at tackle jackals. They're very good at getting the player down and getting over and getting the release. Whereas Reffel is very much clamping over. He's not so good at sizing them down first. Also, having Reffel, we've shown he doesn't have any sort of other carrying threat. He's not in a line-out option. So you're losing that, especially when Jack Morgan isn't in the line-out. So you need someone who can jump. That French pack is massive. We need ballast. One area I think we could get at them is their centres, because Gail Folk goes out, so there's a real uproar in the centres. But there's still some Maverick things. So if we target Dupont, Untermack gets the ball and does magic. We target Dupont and Untermack, Ramos gets it. And if it's not them, it's Bale Barry. It's whichever other random Pro Day doing and they've pulled
Ridiculously
up.
quick.
It's, and I don't know how Adam Jones has had one scrum session with him so far. I don't know how he's going to get Azarati to take on the might of the French back. I don't know. So it's got to be Henry Thomas. And if it is Ben Warren, which one thing we did miss in the news is Ben Warren has been called up to the squad, who is a very cracking prospect, but probably still a bit raw, certainly for the international level, being uncapped. it's all well and good being positive, but we've also got to have some realism, particularly with tactics. And I think dual open sides is a terrible idea.
Whoa. When did realism ever play a part when it came to Six Nations predictions? Realism has got nothing to do with Welsh rugby whatsoever, Harley. This is all about fantasy and optimism, and maybe, just maybe, one day we might nick something and something might happen.
If we're going full fantasy, I'm looking forward to Adam Jones being announced as starting tight end.
It might come to that if we carry on with all these injuries. I don't know if you're going to ask this question, Lee, but do you think Wales should get the wooden spoon? Because I have heard so many pundits now who are predicting this to finish 6th, and I honestly don't think we will. And it's getting on my nerves a little bit. I think we are being seriously written off too much, I think. I'm not saying we're going to finish 3rd or 2nd, don't think that for a second, but I don't know. I just don't think we're going to be as bad as everyone keeps suggesting, but that could be the optimist in me. I don't know. Do we think we're going to finish last?
No, I don't.
I do.
You do?
I do, but because I haven't seen anything that says otherwise. After the France game, maybe I'll see some bits. But the problem for me is every time, as we discussed with the squad last week, every time we think Gatland's got a plan and it's something that's working and you can build on, he rips it up and starts again. You know, like the whole revolving centres thing. Now we're going back to basically square one in the last Six Nations, and the last Six Nations was a complete whitewash, and we were, a wooden spoon, and we're back at that point again. So I've got nothing to tell me that we're not.
I don't agree with that, Ali. We're in a better position than we were last year. Our team's doing better. Players are playing well. English players playing well on the whole in the English Premiership. We've got some experienced players who've shown to be international quality. I agree with Jamie. I think we'll beat Italy, and I think we'll beat England in the last game.
Well, but that depends if the game plan, the tactics suit them. Because for all we know, we can all say, "Oh yeah, it's great. We've got Faletau and Liam Williams back." They could get injured in the first 5 minutes against France, be out for the tournament, and then we've got Ellis Mee at fullback for the rest of the tournament, who's never played there in his life. Like this is the sort of thing Gatland could be doing. In fact, I wouldn't surprise me if he starts Ellis Mee at blindside flanker against France, because that is the sort of nonsense that's been happening.
Stick him in at hooker for his pace around the pitch. Right, gents, we are at that time where it is time to call it a night and get some beauty sleep. So thank you once again for your time. We will be back next week with some Six Nations stuff. In theory, it gets easier because there's only one game to review. But you remember last year when we tried doing it and we were like, oh, it's all right. We'll have this done in 45 minutes, and we were still on it for 2 hours. So fingers crossed there won't be that much to talk about next week.
I'm not being funny. I just don't want to talk about the Dragons for the next few weeks. I'm sick of talking about them. I don't want to talk about them anymore.
Well, thankfully, you've got 2 little weeks of it right in between everything else.
I'm going on hiatus, actually. Although I am planning to do a pod this week if the special guest agrees to it. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled. I don't want to say who it is because it could go tits up and fall through. So we'll see.
Right. On that note then, gents, we shall call it a night. It has been a pleasure as always. And as always, enjoy your rugby. All the best. Good night. That was WRAP, the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.